And now we're catching up with one of my favorite authors who's been on Good Things Before, Miss Sydney Hedberg. She is author of Funds Will Follow, A Guide to Finances, Living Well, and Building Your Dreams, which I think is a great title. Welcome back, Sydney.
Thank you, Miss Rebecca. How are you?
I am doing well, and this is your second title that we've had the opportunity of hearing about. So what inspired you to do the second one, Funds Will Follow?
Yes. Well, my first book, Barneys, Bergdorfs, and Bills, was written actually when I was just finishing up school at Ole Miss. So 22 years old. I'm now 30 years old. I think there's a reason that they say, wisdom comes with age, and not that I have it all figured out by any means, but you definitely know more in 8 years. And so I kind of went back through Barneys, Bergdorfs, and Bills, and I also looked at the state of the economic world, because the main bulk of that book was really about just the fundamentals of finance, right? How the economy works, how money works, how you can manage your money. And I still really liked those topics. But again, interest rates have changed in the world, and just how people are investing. We have cryptocurrency now. So I wanted to freshen up some of those topics. Those topics largely remain the same because the fundamentals of finance don't change, right? But the topics towards the end of the book are a little bit more of the personal topics, again, that when I was younger, they just were a little bit different. And so rewriting those was really fun, and it was kind of a neat reflection of how I have changed and evolved. And I think if everybody kind of looks at their life, they can have parallels to how their lives have evolved and changed, and things that they used to find important and things that they now currently find important.
We also survived a pandemic during that time, too, which I think really shifted a lot of people's mentality, not only around money and finances for sure, but then also what does it mean to live a good life or to have success? What does that look like? Definitions changed. And it sounds like, too, with age does come wisdom. With that, I can give you that, Cindy. Being almost 40 now, my definition of success definitely has changed since 22. But for you, how did that sort of change between your first title and then this one? What has changed in terms of how you define success?
Well, you talk about the pandemic, right? I mean, a healthy person has 1,000 wishes. An unhealthy person has one wish, and that's to be healthy. And so I do feel like that whole experience, as arduous and drawn out as it was, really did provide people with perspective of, if you don't have your health, you really don't have much. And so I think people can just look at wealth and say, well, that is success. And a lot of people have that stigma. I think Jim Carrey said it, I wish that everyone would get rich and famous, to find that's not the answer, because it's not. There are plenty of people that reach that and then they find true unhappiness because, they weren't happy when they reached it. So I think I just really found, health, family, balance in life. And again, I think I always had, I still felt those things when I wrote the first book, of course, but just as you go through life and go through certain world events, I think those just become a little bit more firm in your core and in your belief system of, without this, it doesn't really mean anything. And I can have, an extra $150,000 in my paycheck or whatever it might be. But unless you have worked on yourself and have the fundamentals and the foundation of you down pat, it's going to be really difficult to just throw money at the problem.
And I think, even though I'm a little bit further along, I can kind of remember what it was like coming out of college, being bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and wanting to take, the bull by the tail, so to speak. And you start to realize a lot of the people you looked up to that were very successful in whatever field you were going down, it was at a price of either mental, physical, or relationship health. And you start to question, or you should start to question, is this what I want for myself? Is it worth, giving up all of these things to chase whatever, sparkly thing that I had in mind? And so I'm sure you saw that too. Did you recognize that people either your age or maybe even mentors that were older were forfeiting some of the things that matter the most for traditional success?
Yes, and that was a big part of the perspective that I gained, right? I graduated from Ole Miss. I moved to New York City, which is kind of the place where I feel like you can never make enough money to live there because it is just so ghastly expensive. But I looked at some, high-paid executives that I knew, and you can read. I mean, a lot of people would be interviewed in the Wall Street Journal, and they'd be like, "I missed a lot. I missed my kid's soccer game. I missed my brother's wedding. Whatever it might be." And it was, to what price? Was that extra dollar? Did that make them exponentially happier? And again, I'm not sitting here saying that money doesn't make things easier. Of course it does, right? It gives you freedom, which I think is what, I think that can be analogous there, but it also can provide you with this golden cage that you build around yourself because, you are in the office until 11 p.m. and you're going back at 6 a.m. And that's just a really difficult life because then you're not taking care of yourself physically. You can't be. You're not getting enough sleep. You're probably not getting exercise. You're probably not eating correctly. So you're forfeiting more than you know. And I just feel like the earlier in life you can come to the conclusion of, well, maybe I don't really need as much money as I think. If I just stop spending so much money, then you can build more things around what is important to you. Is simplicity important? Is passion important? Is just autonomy important to you, where you get to do whatever you want, and maybe you're not making this vast amount of money you would assume that you would, but you're making enough to plug along and provide for your family. So I think you learn so much, and everybody's definition of success is all relative based on where they've been.
Totally agree with that. And I know Funds Will Follow, Sydney, which is your second title. You're still very passionate about being fiscally savvy, right? Or being fiscally responsible. You haven't thrown that out the window at all. And so how do you sort of take that and still fit it into this new mindset of being more authentic in your life or being more balanced in sort of your approach? How is it still, or why is it still important to still be really responsible and savvy with your finances?
I think it's even easier then, right? Because when you kind of get rid of that stigma that you need all of this stuff in your life, cars, bags, shoes, purses, whatever it might be, you still need your assets, right? Your homes, and again, your car would be an asset too, but it's a depreciable one. Maybe you don't need the new car every year because you're just, spending money left and right, but it's more like you don't need those things. And so I've found that I'm able to be even more financially responsible because I'm not chasing after that one thing that I'm lusting for, and that's why I'm going to work every day. Why I'm going to work every day is because I like what I do, and I like the balance that my life gives me, and I've just found more purpose. And I think that when you're looking for, it's a bit difference between a career and a job, right? And if you can look at your thing that you go do every day as a career and something that you're really invested in, then that money you make isn't just money that you go out and then spend on random things. It's money that you take in, and you're like, well, I'm going to use this when I really need it. So I just think with you really discovering the most authentic you just have a little bit more control over that. And again, you take away the power that money has. When you stop feeling like I'm just spending so much and money is controlling me, like that's a really terrible position to be in because you're very beholden to whatever job you're working at that point, right? Because you have to keep up with all these debts. And some of them are student loans and some of them are mortgages that you have to. But a lot of times it's online shopping and people have credit card debt because of that. So when you take away that power of money by controlling yourself and really getting in touch with how much you should be spending, that's confidence and that's your power.
You talk about in part 7 the difference between joy and happiness. What does that look like for you, Sydney? How do you define joy versus happiness?
Well, I think that happiness is result reliant. If I get this job, I will be happy. If I don't, I won't. And joy is a constant. Joy is just waking up and being like, I'm healthy. I can go outside and I can get in my car and I can drive to see a loved one. And I get to go to work. I have a career. I have all these things in my life. I can go to a grocery store and I can get food. And so it's finding those little things in life versus having to have these huge mountains to climb and be like, well, once I get there, I'm going to be happy. Because again, on the other side of that is if you get to the top or on the other side and you're not happy, then you're going to be kind of depressed because you've told yourself from the start, well, once I get there, I'm going to be happy. And to see that you're not can really kick some people when they're already pretty down if they're just looking for a quick fix.
I think this is a great book, Sydney, for those just graduating college or on the verge of graduating college, because I feel like so many, and I remember me being in that trap, we go through the grind of getting it done, walking across the stage, getting your degree, and then thinking, what's next is what you've been waiting for to be happy. And a lot of folks find themselves very disappointed what's on sort of the other side or the next sort of grind or ladder to climb. So and anyone really in a life change, I think would be a good fit for your book, but particularly those just graduating college. So how do they get it, Sydney?
Yes, and I agree. And I think sometimes, when you're listening to your parents when you're in college, but who really wants to listen to your parents? I mean, a lot of this stuff that I'm regurgitating in the book, I'm like, yeah, my mom and dad definitely told me that. But I think maybe hearing it from a different source that's not a parent maybe is a little bit better. But it is available on Amazon Kindle. This is actually only an ebook, which I am a hardback book reader, but I like this because you can take it on the go. If you are, looking to invest in something, you can have that just on your phone, on your tablet, on your Kindle. Very
accessible.
It's a
very
low price
easy.
book.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's very accessible and it's a low price, and it's something that I feel will pay dividends to anyone that picks it up, and I hope everyone enjoys it.
Well, Sydney, I totally appreciate your time here on Good Things. Best wishes to you. Happy to have you back anytime. But you guys stick with us. We got more for you coming up next.